Some of you, especially any literature or film buffs in the audience, might have noticed the title of my presentation is a play on words meant to reference Philip K. Dick's classic science fiction novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Now, I chose to make this reference for two reasons. The first reason is simply that I'm a fan of both the novel and its film adaptation, Blade Runner. But the second reason is because the story is a thought-provoking examination of empathy and what it means to be human in a digital age. For anyone unfamiliar with the book, it follows a futuristic bounty hunter named Rick Deckard, who is tasked with hunting down and retiring 6 fugitive androids. Now, the androids in question are considered highly dangerous and extremely violent, but it is not only the perilous nature of Rick's mission that make it a difficult assignment. The androids he is hunting are virtually indistinguishable from real humans. In fact, the only way to identify an android as such is by administering an empathy test known as the Voight-Kampff test. What follows is a complicated plot full of twists and turns that eventually leaves Rick questioning what is real and what is not, as well as the nature of life and humanity itself. Now, by the end, Rick even begins to wonder if genuine empathy is possible at all. Now, I wanted to discuss this speech, or to begin this speech by discussing Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, because the topic of empathy is a driving theme of this presentation. But also because we find ourselves living during a moment in time when, like Rick Deckard, we are constantly being confronted by new technologies that are often scary and confusing. For example, the sudden rise of artificial intelligence has understandably filled many with feelings of anxiety and uncertainty. And this incorporation of AI into seemingly everything has caused people around the world to fear how such technologies might affect their livelihoods, their privacy, and even their well-being in some cases. However, though a certain level of skepticism and caution is surely warranted, what I want to speak about today is the potential good that can come from responsible uses of new technologies such as AI. Specifically, I want to discuss how AI-based software that combines AI with live human performance can be used to deliver accessible simulation-based learning experiences that can be used to strengthen essential human traits like that of empathy. To understand how AI can help create accessible simulation-based learning experiences focused on empathy, it is first necessary to know a bit about the history and effectiveness of simulations as an educational tool. Now, to begin with, simulations have been used as a method of learning for millennia. For example, in ancient Babylonia, clay liver simulators were used to help forecast the possible outcome of various diseases. Additionally, during the medieval ages, simulators like the quintain, a carved wooden figure designed to help improve swordsmanship, were used to help soldiers practice combat techniques outside of battle. And finally, in more recent times, simulation technologies such as virtual reality and augmented reality have been used to great effect in the field of aerospace, where the aforementioned technologies are used to help learners prepare for a multitude of emergency scenarios. These examples, and many others, highlight the fact that simulation-based learning experiences are and have always been vital to the human learning process. But why is this the case? Well, simulation-based learning experiences are effective for 3 primary reasons. The first is that they provide learners a safe, low-stakes environment in which they are free to make errors without suffering real consequences. Consider a simulated experience such as practicing CPR. In this example, if a learner's chest compressions are too forceful, or if a learner fails to properly open the airway before providing rescue breaths, there's no actual risk of causing harm or even losing a life. In other words, the learner is able to focus on improving their skills instead of the pressure that comes with the situation in the real world. The second reason simulation-based learning experiences are helpful is that they allow for immediate feedback. Again, give thought to the example of practicing CPR. Due to the fact that the simulation is conducted under the supervision of a certified instructor, the learner who makes mistakes is corrected instantly. This means that bad habits are not ingrained. And finally, the third reason that simulation-based learning experiences are valuable to learners is because they are repeatable. Returning to the example of CPR, Think of how a learner is able to take multiple turns practicing with a mannequin to make sure that their technique is flawless before completing the training course. Through this repetition, the learner develops muscle memory and gains confidence in their abilities, and they move one step closer to mastering the skill. These three elements of simulation-based learning are critically important when it comes to the human learning process, and they are the reason why simulations have been such a popular teaching method throughout human history. However, two major challenges associated with simulation-based learning experiences today are that they can be incredibly expensive and labor-intensive to facilitate. Now, whether it's the use of live standardized patients, simulators like CPR mannequins, or digital simulators like AR or VR, smaller organizations and institutions with limited resources at their disposal are often prevented from using simulated learning experiences. However, thanks to advancements in AI, certain simulated learning experiences can now be created, developed, and delivered in a manner that makes them more accessible. For example, thanks to an AI-based software called Immersion, BGSU's own virtual simulation program is now able to deliver simulations for local schools, businesses, and community organizations for a fraction of what it might cost any of these groups to create or facilitate one of their own. These simulations are limited in what kind of skills they can practice, but thanks to a combination of AI technologies and live human performance, they can replicate almost any scenario imaginable. The AI in question is used to generate digital avatars and environments, which are then brought to life by a single human performer who controls the avatar's movements and provides all of the dialogue in real time. The interactions are conducted live either in person or over a video conferencing platform of the instructor's choice. The following video clip is an example of how such a simulation works.
Going on. I've noticed that I haven't seen you here at youth group as much as you used to be.
Oh, yeah, I've been really tired lately. So yeah, I missed a couple, but I still really like it.
Yeah, you've been tired feeling lately?
Um, yeah, kind of like just there's a lot going on. And so yeah, I had to miss a couple.
Yeah. Do you mind if I ask what's going on? What a lot is going on?
Um, well, my parents have been fighting a lot, and so I don't know. I haven't really felt like myself, and I needed like a break. So I just didn't come for a few nights.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need to kind of step away from everything for a while, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get that. I get that. I know that's a lot. You know, my parents actually divorced, and I know that that was a lot to have to go through. Have you talked to anybody about that?
Um no, my parents they they just told me the other day that they were probably gonna get divorced, so I'm um still kind of figuring out what to do. But I don't want to like be a burden on them because they might not get divorced, and if I don't want to like make them feel bad or anything.
The video clip you just watched was of a simulation that BGSU's virtual simulation team developed and delivered as part of a mental health first aid training seminar. The simulation was one piece of a larger simulation series and was designed in collaboration with BGSU's Office of Health and Wellness. It aimed to help participants in the training seminar practice mental health first aid techniques. However, at the heart of the simulation was the idea that learners would be developing skills such as active listening, patience, open-mindedness, and the ability to recognize any of their own unconscious biases, all of which are skills closely linked to empathy. In addition to being delivered for BGSU's Office of Health and Wellness, the Mental Health First Aid Simulation Series was also delivered for an organization known as the Mental Health First Aid Collaborative. Held entirely over Zoom, the experience was made possible thanks to the AI elements of the simulation mentioned previously. And as the person who delivered both instances of the simulated learning experience, what I found most interesting was the fact that though the participants were technically interacting with me, What we were really asking them to do was empathize with a digital avatar on their computer screen. And surprisingly, it worked more often than not. Despite some hesitation at first, almost all of the participants expressed shock at how easily they were able to feel empathy for the avatars. Some participants even stated they forgot they were interacting with avatars in the first place. The success that BGSU's virtual simulation team experienced with the Mental Health First Aid Simulation Series was evidence that so-called soft skills, such as empathy, can be effectively practiced through simulations, and that by incorporating AI elements into these simulated experiences, the process of delivering and facilitating such experiences can be made more accessible than it ever has been. Though, to be clear, AI-infused simulations should not replace other simulated learning experiences. They should only serve as a viable option for organizations and institutions that would otherwise not be able to provide such experiences. It is inevitable that new technologies, such as AI, will continue to become a part of our daily lives. And while there will certainly be negative aspects associated with their integration, it is important to remember that there will also be positives too. And additionally, when combined with human creativity and ingenuity, as opposed to being a substitute for it, we can actually use AI as a means of becoming better at communicating, listening, and simply connecting with each other. In other words, uses of AI, such as the mental health first aid simulations discussed here, are evidence that when we find ways to work in conjunction with technology instead of against it, we can use it to benefit the public good. Thank you.